Welcome back to Command Value 1, CV2, Episode 6. We're going to call it Covidcon. Hi, everybody. Hello. How's it going? Don?
Hi.
Working from home?
I am.
All of TT Combat in one place?
I'm keeping the ship alive.
Jordan? Working from home?
Only half the time.
Other half, you just not working?
The other half, I am essential.
Oh, essential. Josh, you're essential too.
I am. I'm splitting my time between home and being at my facilities, but yeah, it's exciting.
My happy ass is stuck completely at home, which is starting to wear on me. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting sick of being here.
Yeah, surprisingly, I thought I'd be doing a little better than I am at dealing with all this. It's not even so much that I'm stuck at home, as that like my kid is stuck at home with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been like nonstop.
It's now the lack of separation that I have from everybody.
Right.
Like, because there's no bedtimes are gone and like schedule is gone. So it used to be there was like 2 hours at the end of the day where it was quiet in the house.
Oh, you don't give that up. My boys are still keeping that.
Yeah, you said that. I'm like, man, I need to do that. I need to crack down and be a hard ass. But well, so hey, is this the end of the world? I keep hearing people ask that question. I don't think so.
As we know it, and we feel fine.
You know,
pretty,
last video with Huey Lewis, we're trying to get to sue us, and now you're going to go after REM.
Right.
Those dudes are a bunch of pretentious assholes. Don't you dare get them on us.
It's a pretty lame end of the world if it comes down to it.
Shiny, happy people. Holy, God damn it. So, yeah, it would be I mean, viral ends of the world should end with zombies, right?
I mean, I thought there'd be more internal combusting and stuff like that going on.
Hey, this has got to be good for the sales of the pandemic board games. So,
I swear to God, if they don't capitalize with a COVID-19 special edition, I'll be really disappointed in their business acumen.
Is there going to ever be any time where you're not going to see like the too soon?
We've certainly specialized at that.
Yeah.
So what's
our personal filters aren't the best.
Right. You scroll back through our episode log, and there was a point where every episode wasn't explicit, and then we were just like, yeah, fuck it.
Right. Kids aren't listening to this shit anyway.
Adults are really listening to it.
We might piss off 2 people.
Oh no, our listener. All right. So what's new? And the only thing I wrote on the episode guide was that the 2.1 rules of Drop Zone are officially released in a free PDF format as well as a new book, which you will not see until this pandemic is over. Unless, Don, do you have copies of the new book?
I don't have any copies yet, no.
So you can get the free PDF copy, but you have to dig through the TT community to find it, because last I looked, it wasn't in the resource section. Have any of you sat down and had a nice visit with the new rules?
I studied it a bit before Adepticon, and I mean, there's some cleaning up of it, but it's been a couple of weeks, and now I'm a little blank on some of the changes. So I guess that's not the greatest segue.
Yeah, well, no, I downloaded it last week and took a look at it, and I just went, man, I couldn't get that energetic about it. I know that CQ is pretty much unchanged, which for me is one of the biggest problems with version 2. It's my personal beef with the game right now, amongst some minor things. But Jordan, did you get a chance to take a look at it?
I haven't really sat down and compared 2.0 to 2.1 now.
Don, should I ask you? Is that going to get you in trouble if you say I haven't looked at it either?
I haven't looked at it in a while. I mean, I've known the rules for months now. I've had a digital copy for a little while now, and there wasn't a situation coming up where I needed to know rules off the top of my head, so I haven't studied it.
So probably the biggest thing that you can walk away with the 2.1 rules, they made the CQ. Well, I was just remembering something that I was told, and I don't know that we can talk about that. So
don't say that.
Yeah. But so the CQ's a little bit more understandable. It wasn't so bad, and I think in the future it'll get a little bit better with some potential changes that are in the pipeline. But the biggest thing that disappointed me with the 2.1 rules release is that the cleanup for the collateral damage is still really clunky. And in the press release from TTC, they highlight that they don't even follow the rule book, and they use this house rules version instead to play the game.
That was a little confusing.
It seems to be a communication breakdown of what the guys want to do and what they think other people want, but they're not really taking the time to do a full deep dive, reach out to the community kind of a thing. They just poke at some answers here and there and see what people are posting about, and then it's not really, I don't know. They just the office needs to do a better job of being like, hey, what do you think about, like, flat out get in people's face, what do you think about it? And then go from there, instead of being like, well, we're reading comments. And
there's a flip side to that, because they did take reduced and put a hard limit of energy 9 on it.
There was no ignoring that problem. Everybody was like, what the hell is that?
They also applied the AA rule to units who would use reduced weapons. So that fixed what was a major problem. Now, I haven't built a list in a long time. They needed to provide an alt fire setting or an alt rule on the CQ versus non-CQ weapons to prevent infantry from firing out of a building and in a CQ in one activation. And if they do those things, that will have cleaned up that reduced rule and made an impact on CQ. Now, this is my opinion. If you love the rules as written, you're a dumbass, and I don't want to talk to you. I mean, Jesus, I don't want to alienate our listener like that. Seriously, if you enjoy the game as it is written, then enjoy away. It is not the same experience that I signed up 4 years ago with 1.1. That said, they made some positive strides, in my opinion, in this case. CQ is, at this point for me, the biggest problem that has got to change. And that's it. That's it. They fix CQ and it's a playable game. It comes down to unit stats at that point. And unit stats are always a good question.
I think CQ is a lot more playable, and that's great. The collateral, really the one thing I'll say is I was hoping to see with the 2.1 release just some little tweaks to how Behemoth core rules were. That part disappointed me a little.
Well, and quite frankly, Behemoth core rules don't matter until we have a stat block with which to play with Behemoths to see how they work at all.
I can't help but think like the interaction between normal rules and the balance and rules with Behemoths. I think that's still in the process.
It strikes me as a concern that when you go to plan events, you're going to have to specifically say 1750 no Behemoths. And
Behemoths might be balanced per se. I mean, I don't know.
I don't either. Until we see stat blocks, we don't know, and that's the Behemoth problem. But that's the Behemoth in
the Behemoth things that I had kind of looked at before. Those are still there from the version 2 release, and if they printed all these small rule books, I would have thought that they would have wanted to update a couple of the known issues.
Yeah.
But
well, and they talk in the rules that the Behemoths have the sectors for damage. And Don, yell at me if I can't say this, but back in the beta days, we had it at one point where Behemoths just had one stat block, one health bar. And I thought that worked. What?
Yeah, there was a number of ideas going around.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a unit like this, you're always faced with the dilemma of what works and what do you want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you're talking about a big unit like that, you want it to feel like exactly what it is, and it's very hard to get something that is balanced and underwhelming, given what it is, and or totally balls out, sweet as hell,
broke ass,
completely game breaking. Yeah. So finding that medium space between what us, Dave, and the office wants out of these units it's like pulling a tooth. You know what I mean?
It forever will be a problem.
Well, even with Dave's, like you want to design a unit and you have a theme that you're going with, and your design philosophy and what you can actually do with the rules don't necessarily match up where you want them to either.
Well, and it's been a while since Dave has done a release for Drop Zone. If we hop in the way back and go back and think about when the Hades and the Nemesis and the Valkyries, all that stuff was new, Hawk had released that stuff on the website, and you could use it in beta rule, and then they revised it again before they put it in the book. And TT's starting to follow that model. I know I spend a lot of time sounding like I hate Drop Zone anymore and I hate TT and yada, yada, yada. No, they're doing some things right. And that is one thing that is right, to put those units out there so that they can get table time, be abused, and then you have to act on that feedback.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just not – I'm not as active – I don't think anyone is at this point as active as they ever used to be in following up on that. I mean, Gordo and I used to play at least monthly. I haven't played a game of Drop Zone in 6 months. Plain and simple.
Yeah, it was the last play. What'd you call them?
We did a battle report.
Battle report. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. Which you can find on the Gamer Direct YouTube channel. I still get subscribers. I haven't posted content in 6 months, but I still get subscribers. I keep contemplating maybe a bolt action battle report, but I haven't been able to bring myself to it yet.
You know what would be hilarious is if you did like a TTS.
Tabletop Simulator battle report?
Just do a screen recording, and then while two people play, you can zoom around the battlefield and commentate or whatever.
Oh my god, that would actually be fun.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
In the red corner.
we should consider doing that.
Wearing olive drab.
Is another army. So it's funny. I was building American infantry. Oh, we'll talk about that in hobby later. That was a good chat about V2. We haven't talked about Drop Zone in a while. Anyone got anything they want to add or final thought on that before we move on?
I think that the disparity between the new players and the old players is coming down to where do things land? Because it still seems like even though the rules are out and we're already doing the mini rule book and stuff like that, that there still is uncertainty at the direction of the game.
Well, there are a lot of communities who are picking up version 2 or 2.1 now and running with it and having lots of fun. So there's going to be a player base for the game. It's going to grow. They're going to get the armies, the full army boxes out here shortly, and so. I mean, I think it's exciting for the game, but there's just a big divide between version 1 and beta players versus version 2.
The ingrained player base played the game for a tactical simulation in a world that had a very plausible science fiction setting. This rule set lends itself more towards a throw your models on the table and smash them together like Matchbox cars.
And not so much that. Well, it's not so much that as it is. It's more open in that certain units aren't quite as like black and white as they used to be.
Right. It used to be paper, rock, scissors.
Right.
Now there's Spock and dynamite thrown in.
rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So the core values of the game are even to just a small hint of them. They still exist in the game. So it's becoming like I would say this is like the Michael Bay version of Drop Zone.
No, it's more like the J.J. Abrams version of Drop Zone.
No, there's more explosions.
Yeah, but Michael Bay is a far more talented film. Oh, sorry, being a dick.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the I don't know if we'd call them the twins or not from Transformers 2.
So. George Lucas, the joke used to be that the only direction he ever gave when directing the Star Wars film, or the original Star Wars, I guess it was do it again, but faster and more intense. And that's kind of how V2 of Zone feels. Do it again, but faster and more intense. Everything's faster, and everything can try to do everything. And that's...
I wanted to disagree, but no, I think that's a good summation.
I think one key thing that version 2 is bringing to the table that version 1 didn't is the scenario-focused gameplay. I mean, scenarios really matter in the first version 2 or whatever, but it did seem like a lot of just like find an objective and it does this or that, or control an area and that's about it. The way that the cinematics and this version 2 plays to is going to be unique in that the more outlandish scenarios are going to be more accessible than they were in version 1 because almost nobody had played like the attack and defend and the possible objective scenarios in version 1. It just nobody cared for that crap.
So
you can do a more story driven scenario in version 2 of Drop Zone, much more similar to the way that Drop Fleet plays out. Because we've had a lot of fun in creating scenarios, more cinematic driven scenarios in version 2 or Drop Fleet. And Zone will eventually, once we start getting that stuff going and people start taking off on cool scenario stuff like that, I think it'll find its niche in that sort of like cinematic value.
You did remind me of something, and it's just semantics, but goddamn it drives me nuts every time I look at it. Is the fact that they changed everything to objectives?
I knew that was coming.
I will put that all on me and say it's because I'm a grognard in this case, but I can't break myself of critical location, focal point.
So it's not just you, and it is new players, because I had a lot of people reaching out to me or asking for clarification on Facebook about how the new missions play. So to me, that means that a lot of people don't understand how the new scoring works at all.
It was one of those things that I think it was an intent to simplify it, but I think it was overlooked that was a simplification that was confusing.
It was a tone. It was like a toe in the water response to what was and what they wanted.
Right.
And it needed to go one way or the other. Stay.
And that's not a game breaker. And I feel like I shit on it, but I'm not.
That one literally is semantics.
It is.
And again, that goes back to what I was saying. Like the way that it's currently written, just better instructions for the scenarios will eliminate the issue with the core problems of the objectives, because they are kind of designed to be like whatever you want them to be for the scenario. Even it just doesn't make any sense when you're reading them outright.
Now the flip side, something I do like about the way they write scenarios now is they don't show you a map of buildings in place and then some obsessive compulsive asshole tries to rebuild that map exactly every time you play that scenario. They're just like, have this many buildings and have fun.
Talking about scenarios, it really makes me lament the fact that Adepticon didn't go on and we didn't get to see all of those laser cannons.
Laser schlong Joel.
Poor Joel didn't have his time to shine, but he made money off of those things.
Those things are out in the wild now.
Yeah.
Surprised I haven't seen any posted on the Facebook page.
They might not have gotten them yet.
Yeah, they might have to save up, a month's mortgage to be able to pay the shipping on them. So,
well, just how behind the shipping is at the moment, anyways, because nobody wants to leave their house, so everything's getting shipped to them. Even priority mail, ground mail is like several days out. So, but anyways, I would expect at least a few people will post their, look what I got kind of a thing, and
their laser schlongs.
Yeah. And so I think for us being old school players and tournament organizers, even if we aren't like enamored by some of the new rules and stuff like that, I think our skill set to write quality scenarios for the games are still really relevant. I think that a lot of the new stuff and a good chunk of the rules or the scenarios for Fleet and Battle for Earth actually came from us. So,
well, I gotta say, I've got two projects in the back of my mind. One I was working on for Origins, and it all kind of got shelved when I switched jobs, and then there was a pandemic, and now Origins being what it is. But that was to do my own tournament errata for Drop Zone, which is primarily just going to be a couple of options to make CQ a little less alpha strikey. But there's this other thing that's kicking around in the back of my head. Have any of you ever played? We need Aaron on here for this conversation. Have any of you ever played BattleTech?
Nope.
Or like Babylon 5 Wars?
Nope.
Negative.
So those games, you get your mini and you put it on the table and you've got a page and it has like damage bubbles and it feels weighty and powerful. There's a part of me that wants to take Drop Fleet and do a set of rules that focuses more on playing a ship or just a few ships that are heavier and weightier, and you actually have to pound the shit out of them to destroy them.
This sounds like a 10 o'clock at night con game.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Like I said, it's something that I'm just kicking around. just because like I really enjoyed like B5 Wars. It was one of my favorite tabletop games at the time. I had a shit ton of minis for it, and it was cool to bring a ship out there or to be there with a half a dozen people and they each brought a ship or two, and you're just having like a hardcore battle in Mutara Nebula style starship battle. And that's the kind of feeling I wanted from Fleet, but you don't really get that. You get the generic ship explodes when it's hit by fart in space. So like I said, that's just something I was contemplating.
Well, it's a different cinematic value that Fleet gives you currently. You get a lot of stuff out there that doesn't survive, but you get the cool explosions and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've had some people who got into the game and don't play anymore because they want something closer to what you just described.
Yeah. That reminds me, Victory at Sea should be coming to me in the next few weeks.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's supposed to. Well, depending on what COVID does. Now, Warlord's got a few people in the warehouse, so I don't know how quickly
they closed for about a week, and then now they're back up with the skeleton crew. So even if you are looking to order, not only will it be very slow on responding to all those things, but also they're going to be taking care of the backlog that they left behind when they had stopped for a week.
So one of the guys in the Paint All the Minis contributors group that I'm still part of, even though I don't contribute nearly enough. If you listen, sorry, Dan. Said that he had gotten a hand of it. I think it was Brian because he wrote a couple of books for Warlord, but he said he got a hold of the rules and was going over them. And he said that he's like, "Do you like Blood Red Skies?" I was like, "I do. I love Blood Red Skies, Don. I love it." He's like, if you like Blood Red Skies, you'll probably like Victory at Sea. He's like, it's got a much more of a quicker, fast-paced, easier play style to it. So yeah, you're probably going to hate Victory at Sea too.
Oh my God, no!
If you're looking for a good boat game,
No.
This is where Josh swoops in.
Hey, have you heard of this game called Oak and Iron? Didn't you buy Black Seas? Didn't you get into Black Seas pretty hard?
Well, no, I bought the starter set at the GT last year, but Patrick and I, well, actually, I should say Patrick's been waiting on me to paint on my ship so we could actually play.
I've been waiting on you to paint your Bolt Action Army for 8 now.
Yeah, it seems to be a running theme. Unfortunately, when I have to paint stuff at work, my stuff doesn't get put on the to-do list.
How many dots did you paint today?
It's been nonstop bed trialing for 2 days straight, so I haven't got to dots yet. But I will say that I can definitely tell some of the older stuff to some of the newer stuff that, in relative terms, that Dave did, because there's a few pieces in here that I'm just like, why, Dave? Why? Self-edit. Come on, man. There's way too much crap on a model this size. I mean, some of these Sheltari pieces look like they some like mythical rich person walking out in all their jewels and furs, and you know what I mean.
Flav of the
right, yeah, exactly. Just like way too much going on.
Well, that's a fantastic segue. You want to talk about hobby?
Yeah, we could.
So it sounds like you're painting Sheltari.
Am I starting?
Sure. You're already talking about it.
Okay, you already. Yeah. So I finished the PHR stuff last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. And then this week, I'm starting on the Sheltari catalog in the new paint scheme that we have.
That's the same as like the drop fleet stuff, like the Dreadnought and stuff.
Yeah. The only difference is that in fleet.
Oh, well, the new starter scheme, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you see the new starter scheme, that's what all of Sheltari is going
to like red and yellow, orange.
Start looking at. Yeah. I call it the tropical sunrise look.
Wow, that is the least intimidating name for a paint scheme.
I mean, why not?
Every time I paint,
why not tropical thunder? Huh?
Nah, man.
Dude.
I look like I want to drink like a pina colada every time I paint these guys. But no, it looks good. And one thing that's actually surprising is the infantry take really well to the paint scheme. And in fact, I did the Ronin and the power suits actually look really cool in this paint scheme.
Ronin aren't infantry. I'm just gonna throw that out.
Well, I mean, they're humanoid. Okay, so sure.
They're like
even the infantry models are battle suits for the Space Hedgehogs. So
that is true.
So that's what I'm working on right now. So I'll be on these guys for. Geez, how much more do I have to paint over here? I'm looking at it about a month's worth of painting for Sheltari before I move on to something else. eventually I'll start getting into things that I can't talk about. So
Have you painted any Americans?
I have not painted any Americans. I've not built anything for bolt action in a couple weeks.
You're
I'm an essential worker, Derek. Okay, I'm needed on the front lines to get these.
apparently I am too. I haven't stopped working. I don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
Don, you're the only. Yeah, you're the only TT Combat employee working, aren't you?
As of this recording, I am. So,
Well, I'm just gonna,
waiting on the Prime Minister to let the guys know when they can get back to the warehouse.
So the other painter, he didn't take his paint stuff home.
He's been out sick, so
yeah,
I
he's been sick for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what the condition of Finn is at the moment, so I won't speculate to anybody that I work with.
He's probably got a plant arm and is on an adventure with Princess Bubblegum and Jake the dog.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh. Thought that reference was going to be wasted.
No, I'm there with you.
So, anyways, yeah, I'm the only one doing some work right now for the company.
Well, I'm gonna.
All those lazy bastards are at home getting the government money while I'm stuck working.
I'm gonna do what Josh calls hobby shaming right now. Since our last podcast, I've painted 12 SS, an SDKFZ 7, an 88, its 7-man crew, a Puma, an SDKFZ 222, 30 Fallschirmjäger, built 3 terrain pieces with the fortifications that Jordan printed for us, and I've built 36 Americans.
Didn't you also do kind of a themed battle board?
I've bought the stuff for a beach board, but I haven't started working on it yet because my wife had all the cabinet doors down here that she was painting. So those just left, so I can start spreading that material out and assembling it.
Don't spread your material out while you're on camera, please.
Oh, I know you want to see that. There's so much to be seen. So
That is an impressive amount of work, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how much of my hobby log I can get through while we're quarantined till probably June.
Yeah.
Yeah. I figure I might be able to get a decent way through my hobby log at this rate.
Well, considering you're buying new stuff to paint.
I've stopped selling my bodily fluids with the outbreak. I went last week was my last week because I had some bonus money coming to me from selling my fluids. Okay. I do the whole for people listening and wondering. I do the whole BioLife thing because it's my hobby money.
It's a plasma donation.
Yeah,
I was wondering what the fluid was.
Yes, they suck my blood out.
I don't know that anyone was going there, Don, till you did.
I don't know what I can get out of that.
Listeners know.
I mean, I have attractive children. I might be able to get something. I don't know how much of that is me and how much of that is Mrs. Seibert.
Is that how you do it? You just show up into the bank and be like, look at my kids. They're attractive. Who wouldn't want this?
I should see if the missus and I can sell it. I mean, we can walk in together and be like, listen, she needs to get rid of some eggs and I need to borrow a cup. And, this is what we made. So it might work. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, anyway, yeah, I stopped going to BioLife just because, of everything the way it is. Wyandotte County's got about a half dozen cases now reported. Hancock County's got more than that. So, there's 30 cases reported between the two counties. There's closer to 90 to 120 of them floating around. And, I went to the store the other day and some jackass is walking down the aisle and he's got a face mask hooked around his ears and pulled down off of his chin. He looks right at me and he coughs. And I could smell his cigarette breath. That's the proximity we were when he open mouth coughed at me without covering it. And I'm like, motherfucker, really?
Isn't that an attempt with a lethal weapon or something?
Shit, at this point you'd think it's getting there, but so I just kind of what, I need to start minimizing my exposure at this point, and I've got enough shit to paint that I don't need to go buy more bolt action right now.
So you want more stuff to paint, then Jordan will be happy to send you some.
Right.
Well, I figure if I get through all the American stuff that I've got, which I figure I can do that by end of next week. That's a joke. Maybe.
I thought you were being serious.
I've still got the rest of my Zombicide Invader Pledge and the rest of my Massive Darkness stuff to paint. So
There,
And
there's always 20 more miniatures.
there's always 20 more. And I've got actually a little mini Ares diorama I started on and got it to the built phase and then never did anything with it. So, yeah.
I'm not lacking in projects to work on. So,
what hobbyist is ever lacking in projects to work on?
Well,
what
I
have you been
kind of
working on, Jordan.
I shuffled the order there because I was going to let you and Jordan go together, or in whatever order you choose, because of all the 3D printing you guys have been up to.
I assembled some Americans. I have all my Americans that I own bolt action wise, except for one machine gun team assembled. So got a base.
You're going to regret that too.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't even played with, I think, more than one.
No one does.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll master the game enough and I'll learn to want to play with 3 at a time. But
there's a school of thought that says if your army gets this as a bonus, you should be taking it as a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But machine gun teams, having 3 machine gun teams actually kind of actively works against one of the major national rules that America gets. So
I thought we were easy mode though.
you are.
Apparently that's Britain.
They are easy mode. You just get to bombard the shit out of them.
Well, for hobby for me, right when Ohio got locked down, I think is when I got a 3D printer, and I had been eyeing all sorts of different terrain and stuff I could print out. So during this quarantine, started printing out buildings and walls and terrain just to spruce up the gaming table. But then I also got around to building some MDF TT combat, and I got one of them painted, almost 2 painted right now. So I've just been working on terrain. And currently my 3D printer is just printing out visors for nurses, because apparently that's a need. So
You need, fill a need.
So is that a work donation? Are you at least getting them to buy you a filament?
I mean, filament's like $18. I'm not too worried about it. But,
I am inspired enough to want to buy a 3D printer with my big fat Trump check.
I did not think that a 3D printer was going to be as inclusive to wargaming as like when I initially went out for the purchase. But I mean, I just keep finding all sorts of different things to add. Like for bolt action, I can print out tanks for stuff I'm probably wasn't going to buy anyways. Or, just to have something, there on the table. But really for printing
Gaming
out
in
terrain,
general is a large segment of the hobby 3D printer community.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice. I mean, there's loads of stuff for, like Oak and Iron, a game that I guess it's not technically released yet, since they're still getting through pre-orders and stuff. But there's already, lots of stuff out there for that. So, I mean, I imagine whatever gaming community you belong to, I mean, War Machine, there's all sorts of measuring sticks because you got to be so precise in that game, and it's just if you're interested in it, I'd recommend getting a 3D printer because it's been rather.
I don't know that I would extensively use 3D printed tanks for my army, but I was thinking about the possibility of doing like a Kursk board and just being able to mass print Panthers and T-34s to build a scatter terrain.
Oh yeah.
The burnout shells of tanks, because even at that point, even if they misprint, then you can just mangle them a little more and you've got a decent piece of scatter.
Well, and if you want to if you only want part of the tank, through clever placement on your print bed, you can actually get, the right cut. You won't have to print the tank and cut it off at an angle to get, your mangled tank piece.
Right.
You can kind of
That's a good point.
actually use your slicer to section off and rotate and have a nice, half buried turret or something.
Yeah. Well, I know, Josh, you were posting pictures in our group the other day of stone walls you'd built and are printed and fencing you'd done. And just like basic scatter stuff that is frustrating to buy or build. Mm-hmm. And it looked nice.
Oh yeah, I'm really impressed with what you can do with a $180 3D printer. It's made its investment back in just terrain I've already printed out for it. So
and it's only been 3 weeks for that thing? So I mean, it's not too bad. Plus, I mean, when you're thinking about things like, now that we're pretty heavily into bolt action, we're talking about a historical game that has terrain pieces that there are actual representations of. That you're not going to go out and spend. I mean, even if you can find the piece of terrain, an iconic building, a bridge, or whatever it is, even if you can find it, you're not going to go spend hundreds of dollars on this custom-made piece of terrain.
Are you saying Josh is going to print a Pegasus bridge?
You could, yeah, I could certainly do a Pegasus bridge, or even if there was a
yeah, probably could.
A particular battle where there was a iconic building of some sort, and you really wanted to have a cool scenario very specific to that battle. I mean, that's stuff you're just not going to find out there anyways. But it's probably almost guaranteed there's an STL or something out there for it. So,
if not, you can just get good enough at 3D design.
Right, and these are the things that actually exist in the world, so there's going to be pictures of it. So
right,
it's not, you don't have to come up with something out of the blue, out of your imagination, if that's not in your wheelhouse. So I think that's where it really kind of lends itself, is in certainly more historical use than so much fantasy use, I guess. I think fantasy use, the 3D printing stuff, is just more if you're looking to get like cheap multiple tables worth of terrain out there.
Well, you can also use it for making tokens for different game systems.
Oh yeah, those are. And to me, like, I guess since we're on the good 3D printers, it comes down to a quality issue too. Like, for me, if I went into the 3D printer to buy one, I would have to look at what I want it for, and if it's going to be something that I need good quality on, that dictates the product I'm going to buy. Which is kind of a no duh, I guess, answer to that. But
we get it. You've got higher quality,
Badger's got that new Stynylres coming out too. That 3D Stynylres is designed for gap fill and 3D printers.
It's not Stynylres.
What is it? What's it called?
I think it's just called 3D Prime.
Okay.
I mean, that'll be a game changer right there. So, I mean, if you can print out something at a little bit lower quality and get a more affordable 3D printer, and then put that on top of it to get rid of, the largely noticeable stepping in your print.
So that is smoothing out. That's not going to improve resolution at all. It's just it's like you're polishing something, so it makes something shiny. It doesn't improve the quality at all.
If it's still a turd, it's just going to be a polished turd.
Yeah, and
I don't know what you mean by that. Then I guess, like, what is it enhancing on the model that
it doesn't enhance anything? It actually
smooths it out, so it could actually cover detail.
It's like from a physics standpoint, it's doing the opposite of enhancing it. It's you're losing resolution, but you're creating a
So like that, the tanks like I produced, if you look at it, there's, lines, layers going up and down it. It would cover up, some of those lines and, make it look smoother. But on a, 3D printed model, that might not be what you want.
Okay.
But while it does that, it might also eliminate some of the detailing where the hatch is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you're effectively blurring the model to make it look rounded is what that stuff is doing.
Okay.
So if you printed something like a rock face or a cliff, probably be pretty awesome for that. It would smooth out some of those rising lines, but it's going to be a tool in the toolbox at the end of the day. It's just another tool in the toolbox.
But if you get like a nozzle with a thinner, a very high resolution, like the nozzles that you print with, much like an airbrush, they have, and they're very similar actual thread size, for lack of a better term, like nozzle size. They go down to 0.2 millimeter for the extruder head, which it ends up being very, very small. And then you can even make, 0.05 is the lowest on some of these printers that you can go for layer height. And this is a plastic printer, not to get too far into the numbers for you. But when you're printing that, now this could mean it takes, if you're printing a tabletop miniature, like if you're trying to print a bolt action figure that's one infantry guy, or if you're trying to print something that's very similar to one tank in drop zone, at that lowest or highest resolution, whichever way you want to say it, the best resolution that you can get on this plastic printer, it might be a 4 or 5 hour print because it's printing so slow and so thin and so small. But even with that with the plastic cheaper 3D printers. You can get a lot higher quality that you think you can, and when it's that small of a nozzle and that small of a layer, yes, there's still stepping, but it's hidden a lot more than you think it would be.
That is not something I've really played too much with. But, like I said, I'm brand spanking new to the hobby. So,
you probably have a 0.4 nozzle. That's basically the standard.
Yeah.
I have a 0.4 in my Prusa. I have a 0.2 and a 0.3, and I think I even have a 0.7. And I've switched them a few times, but it's tedious enough. I don't typically, because the new nozzles are like $10 a piece.
Right.
So it's an easy swap out. I got them to have them, but I didn't really justify using them once I had them. But it also, you have to dial in your settings again, so it creates a lot more printer maintenance. But you'd be surprised at what you can get out of them.
Well, the bunkers you printed
ones
out nicely.
Yeah, and even with the 0.4, the standard kind of middle of the road size nozzle, when you go that thinner layer height, you can you can get stuff that still looks pretty good. And it depends on like how wide is stuff, like, because the way 3D printing works is it creates essentially a hard shell of the 3D figure that you're printing, and then there's like honeycomb pattern inside that's the infill. So if your figure is wider, then the nozzle width doesn't matter as much because you're basically drawing with the outside edge of the nozzle. So like it being 0.4 across doesn't affect it as much as you're trying to print like 0.05 of a millimeter in height at a time.
Right.
So the width of the nozzle extrusion doesn't come into effect as much unless you're printing, tiny little legs and stuff.
Don, did you die?
No, I'm listening. I was actually interested. So since we're on the topic of 3D printers, let's talk current quality that we have out there. Now, Jordan has a really nice resin printer and the plastic printer as well. And then Josh has got his, which is, when did you get your plastic one, Jordan? How many years has it been?
Well, I have two plastic ones. So I've upgraded the first one I had. I upgraded it, I think, technically twice, and it was, man.
You had that when you were at your mom's house, though.
5-6 years ago. I had it before I got into wargaming. Like I had it for probably over a year before I met you, maybe more than that. Like I had the printer before I even got into miniature painting at all.
Okay.
I felt like I needed a hobby, and before I got into wargaming and miniature painting, I actually got into 3D printing.
And how much did that cost you back then?
The original one was $1,800, and I wanted cheap ones at that time were about $1,000. There was $500 Chinese ones at the time that required a lot of extra work and even more work and even more part buying on top of that if you wanted to not burn your house down.
That kind of goes to anything, really. If you get a cheap airbrush, you're going to be spending more time working on it than you are using it. So,
well, it was, and stuff's gotten a lot better recently. Like even when I bought my second 3D printer, yeah, there was some Chinese clones out there, but I didn't trust them enough, and now I wouldn't have batted an eye. I would have been a lot more likely to buy the same $180 printer that Josh got rather than maybe what I got. But
so we're talking about a 5-6 year difference.
Mm-hmm.
You spent $1,800 and had to upgrade your initial one, and Josh paid $180 and he's getting relatively close print.
I wouldn't have had to upgrade it, but I chose to.
Well, I mean, you did, I guess.
And there's features on them that, on even my older one, that I'm going to guess work probably a little better than his.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I spent another $800 on upgrading that first one, and then by Prusa, which is kind of like the Mark III. I bought that when it came out, and they were going for the kit was $700, and that's just because I went with that because it's like kind of it's the iPhone of 3D printers. It's kind of has the largest community, best community support and all that. It's also
for it.
It's also the model that all the Chinese clones copy.
Okay.
They're the industry leader, if you will.
And how long ago did you get that one?
Probably year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
2.5 maybe, because I had that one for a while before I moved down to Cincinnati. So
we're talking in the process of about 3 years, 3.5 years. The price was cut basically in half,
mm-hmm.
and then now down to Josh's, which is cut more than in half on that end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say if you can get a 3D printer for around $200, so mine's the Ender 3 Pro. Should be able to get them around 200. Works great.
And you just snagged that off of like Amazon, didn't you?
No, I actually got it right off their website.
Oh yeah.
So you can kind of get them on fire sales on Amazon sometimes, or Alibaba. You can sometimes get them a little cheaper, but they're never that much different. Your Ender 3 is actually a Prusa i3 clone. You have a stolen patent version of the Prusa.
See, I have no clue about any of that.
Josh is just all about pirating pirated property. But yeah, that's pretty interesting in just the span of 6 years. The quality to price reduction certainly land in the favor of price, whereas the quality that Josh is putting out maybe slightly behind what you did get out of your initial purchase of $1,800 printer plus $800 in upgrade.
Yeah, well,
but the quality is probably not anywhere close to the savings that you or quality difference is probably not close to the savings. Yeah.
It's not that his parts are even that much different. It was more about quality assurance than anything else. Like,
okay.
The aluminum extrusions and the threaded rods and the stepper motors and the like literally all the mechanical parts, they might even come from the same Chinese manufacturers from the start. It's more about like the precision and quality control of the seller, of the vendor itself.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. I mean, anytime you get into a McDonald's version of anything, your quality is going to go down.
Well, and then part of it too has to go with dollar exchange rates, and when you're getting something directly from China and it's a Chinese company, it's just cheaper because of exchange rates.
Yeah, the manufacturing's in their backyard, so.
Well, but even if it wasn't, it's
as we talk about this, I just got another 3D visor printed. So,
like the price of his Ender 3 in China versus the price of a pair of blue jeans in China, proportionally, probably isn't that different than the price of the Prusa in Europe versus a pair of blue jeans in Europe. It's just the exchange rates and the way that China wants their dollar to be weak because they're such a crazy exporter.
Are you talking about Wranglers, or are you talking about like
right?
What kind of jeans are you talking about here?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all the American jeans come from China anyway, so it's just whatever leather name gets put on the back has a lot to do with it, right?
So, but yeah, that's I find that kind of stuff interesting, and I mean, there's obvious reasons out there, and it's always something that happens, and we knew that eventually 3D printers were going to be certainly affordable. I mean, even if they were still $400, that's not bad considering Josh said he made his money back in a couple of weeks after getting his $180 printer. So,
I think from the wargaming hobby standpoint, though, like I would buy a 3D printer, but I would never want to play a army of Space Marines that I 3D printed, quality wise.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to get Space Marines to that quality. Obviously, we have some really, really nice 3D printers at work for our masters.
Right.
Excuse me, that would get you an army that you'd certainly want to field, but
Right. But I mean,
talking-
I would be thrilled to field them on terrain that would come off of that 3D printer.
right, the Weekend Warrior right now, the quality of stuff that we can afford is still it's at the point where it's worth getting and doing stuff with. Whereas all the initial stuff, even the more expensive stuff from 5 years ago, when I saw what people were doing with it, I just had no interest in what that was. But now that I see Josh and Jordan printing out these, even if it's just basic terrain pieces like a brick wall or a pillbox or whatever it is, that's still something that, compared to the cost of buying MDF versions of those things right now,
Right?
Because MDF is sort of limited in the shape of things you can have. I mean, something like a pillbox isn't that big of a deal, but when you're talking about organic things like rocks and stuff like that.
So I think a lot of it comes down to, and the quality on the wargaming side of things, print-wise, has as much to do with the design process on like the actual files you're printing than it does the actual printer. It's ease of use things that have improved on my printers as they got upgraded. Like my printer that I got like 6 years ago, it could print just as high a quality then. So it's being good enough, like knowing what you're doing with the printer, and then if you're designing 3D files, knowing how to use the limitations of the machine to actually get a higher visual quality model printed.
And to my end point, though, trying to make consistency of quality as well. And that kind of comes to us as TT Combat. We have a whole suite of laser printers for our MDF stuff. That's why we can have such a big line.
Laser cutters, you mean?
Laser cutters, yeah. That's why we have such a big line of MDF stuff, and at the cost that we have it at, because we can produce so much of it at one time. So, as also a resin cast company, I wonder at what point the quality and consistency of print will match cost in producing 3D printed lines of miniatures as opposed to resin cast.
5-10 years probably.
Because if you're talking about a business like us where we have a good sized warehouse and all this stuff, if instead of having to handle these chemicals in a manual way and creating constant molds and stuff like that, if you could do it with a suite of 30 3D printers constantly going,
So from a hobbyist standpoint, there's two types of 3D printers that a consumer can use. It's a resin printer and a FDM, which is the plastic melting kind. But there's actually there's a couple more 3D printing technologies or types, and the high precision manufacturing side of things. Like the technology is already there. And it's partially patents, it's partially material costs. And I can't remember the name of it, but there's basically skip the molds, being able to do high volume manufacturing of 3D printing. If the monetary investment is there, you could already do it at as high a quality of prints as resin, but you're talking $100,000 machines.
Right. That was my point. Was in the gaming industry, no company can afford a suite of 30 printers at $100,000. I mean, that's just insane.
Well, and even with the price of resin, and you talk about how expensive it is versus metal or plastics. Once you get the plastic sprue made, it's that. I mean, it's kind of that same comparison, but a lot bigger. It's going to take a lot. The cheapness of creating a mold for a resin cast is so if you're only printing 1,000 of something, if you're got a very low casting volume, you're never going to beat the economics of just 3D printing something and then making a resin mold and pouring it and copying it that way. Because even like time wise, it's not like if you're using a resin 3D printer versus a resin mold, it's not like the price and the resins are that much completely different. It's just a return on time and investment and how quick a piece is getting made at that point.
I think it comes down to also what you're making. If it makes sense for us to have as many laser cutters that we have because of the size of the line that we produce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what when it comes down to 3D printers, if your entire SKU line is only, a couple hundred miniatures or whatever, it's probably not worth you to go out and invest in a suite of 3D printers. But if you have thousands of SKUs,
Mm-hmm.
Constantly keeping up on the new mold making versus being able to print on demand is eventually probably not too far off, like Josh was saying, in your favor.
Oh my God, you nerds!
Trying to move us on to game recaps because of all the quarantine gaming.
Jesus.
So yeah, I know.
If anyone's still listening, I apologize for this.
This is the most Jordan has ever talked. What are you talking about?
It's true. I actually blacked out though. I was just kind of like skimming around Facebook for a minute, looking at stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit! I've actually lost interest in my own podcast."
Oh, Derek didn't have a chance to try and talk.
Hey, you're the one that threw 3D printing in here. You didn't know what kind of cat you were letting out of the bag.
I didn't think it was going to take up like a half an hour plus. I was like, "Holy shit! What's going on?"
Well,
here?
it's so rare that we talk about the manufacturing side of our industry.
I'm sorry. Do you guys want to keep going? I'll just mute myself.
No, I think that was about it.
Yeah,
I can go build some more Ameridans or something.
We can move on to game recaps.
So the whole miniature casting industry, there's the whole racket of the miniature manufacturing mafia won't let 3D printing take over. Resin casters have to protect their jobs.
I just don't see that happening after a while, though.
Did we get into your resin printer, Jordan?
We talked about it a little bit.
I seriously didn't black out.
We talked about resin versus plastic printing, but not a lot.
So, but anyway, I find it interesting. I'm sorry if anybody out there wasn't, because I mean, this kind of, we're talking about our industry where, if you can start producing more and more of the stuff at your house, or just think of all the MDF laser cutter companies that have popped up since those things have become more affordable. I mean, you're talking about within the last 4 years, even the amount of companies that are popping up. I'm not just talking about mom and pop and they do stuff for their friends or whatever. I'm talking about legitimate companies that are now at conventions and stuff like that.
They're all over at conventions.
And is it good or bad for the industry? And I don't. Is it good or bad for the industry?
It's
both.
So now it comes down. Yeah, it's both. But now it comes down to what are you doing? What's your thing? Like if you're doing an okay looking building at an okay price, you're probably going to get eaten up by the sharks. Whereas if you're doing a highly detailed piece, high quality, people will pay for a couple of pieces. Or our stuff is about, detail wise, we're in the medium size area. Some of our stuff's pretty good, but some of it is,
more stuff TT releases, the better it gets.
Right.
No use for it, but that Elven set that they did,
yeah,
was really fucking gorgeous to look at.
So I think a good comparison is if any of you guys were like role players, when 3rd edition D&D came out,
right.
They had the open gaming license. It created this new accessible industry for gaming where like a bunch of people just got into book publishing, and there was this big rush of so many extra books, and there was a lot of crap.
And there's a lot of really good stuff that came out of it too.
But it was hard to sort through. But it was also a lot more accessible for you to get into the industry.
Yeah.
With all the cost of like the laser printers and the resin printers and all that, I think it's creating a very similar situation in like the miniatures industry where, Joe Schmo with, not a lot of capital could start his own miniatures line fairly easily. As long as he had access to someone who could design decently well, or the same thing with your, laser cut terrain. The tools are cheap enough for anyone to get in. It's how good are you?
Right. And even then, if you're not like blowing things out of the water, let's say you're just doing okay on sales, you're not on your ass for having spent all the money for, tool and die and all that stuff like that.
Right.
So even if it does get to the point where you're like, well, it isn't really worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. You have something that you can still use at home for your own personal gain, and you're not bankrupt because of it. So, or you could be like the guy from King of Death who produced something that is now made him probably a millionaire. So you never know what's going to hit in the industry, and the more chances and the easier it is for you to do those types of things. Because think about how cheap publishing is these days compared to what it was, back during the initial D&D print times and stuff like that.
I mean, to the Kingdom Death guy's credit, he floated to the top because, top to bottom, he put out a high quality product. Like
high quality boobs.
His presentation on Kickstarter was top notch.
Yeah.
His product fulfillment, while it took a while, but the miniatures he produced were very, very pretty. I don't know if you like, the whole Lovecraftian half naked aesthetic of it, but you still got to give him credit for, the artist that he got.
What was that, Eric?
You ever seen Lovecraft? I don't want to see him half naked. Weird looking.
Right.
Hey, Jordan, let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you own a copy of Tabletop Simulator?
I do.
You do?
I do.
I'm going to shut you guys up about 3D printing and shit now because we have passed an hour mark.
Okay, boss.
Damn, dude. Finally, I get a flow going here, and then Captain No Fun just steps in.
It's like Jordan's talking too much. I got to change the subject so it's something I care about.
But yeah, I mean, it's because Jordan and I think more on the manufacturing side of things. He's helped me out at so many conventions now that he sees the back end of all these things, and he, but yeah, but just to end my point, like we're kind of at a weird time right now where, especially with the coronavirus and stuff like that, and everything being shut down, like who's going to make it out of this? Who can afford to keep going, and who can afford not to? But as this technology continues to produce, that risk is becoming less and less. Of an issue, especially if you are doing these things at your house and your garage and stuff like that, where you're not paying to have, people working at an office space where you owe rent to and things like that. If all you really need to do is lay off your labor force until the coast is clear, then you can survive in that regard. So I look forward to seeing what people can really put out there. As things go along, and like Jordan was saying, to the quality of Kingdom Death, you gotta really step it up to get yourself noticed in the industry. But the more that you can control on your end, and from what I gather, the reason why it took so long to get the things done for Kingdom Death is because that guy was not going to relent to quality control issues. But when you're dealing with China, that's not like a pick up the phone and talk to somebody kind of a thing.
Well, even it was just him. Like it wasn't, some miniature company. Like I think it's of course grown since then, but yeah, the original project, I don't think it was like he personally had complete control and there was no company. It was like a side project of his that just kind of blew up like way big, and he was good enough to actually fulfill it.
So, I mean, somebody with that kind of commitment with the tools that might be around in the next 5 or so years. Who knows what kind of crazy stuff we might see out there. And, these big risk IP situations that a lot of companies have folded under might not be as big of an issue. So, we might start seeing more of our favorite things out there, maybe an actual Transformer miniatures game. That somebody isn't going to go under producing.
Well, we're all just going to switch to Tabletop Simulator, and we're going to use the VR goggles.
So WizKids, who's producing D&D miniatures in plastic, for Hasbro, is now they've now released, I think, 6 or 7 or maybe 8 Transformers in that same line. Is it only 4?
Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, and Starscream.
Okay.
So there's a game that is at Kickstarter now, I believe, or going to Kickstarter soon, called Bot War. And those guys were at one point building it as a Transformers game. They had 3D printed numerous miniatures for it and had them painted up and had a couple of editions of the rule set that they had pounded out. They took it to Hasbro, and Hasbro went, no. So they have actually repackaged that game into what is now called Bot War. And like I was really interested in it when it was a Transformers one, but now that it's like generic Transformers, because they've gone so far now it's Transformers and Mask and G.I. Joe, and it's all rolled into one. So there's like 6 or 7 different factions, but like the one faction has a couple of robots and then like a bunch of really close to Cobra vehicles. And then the other one's like a couple of robots and a bunch of really close to G.I. Joe vehicles, and then some transformable vehicles that obviously are Mask vehicles. But if that,
I was going to ask, like, why didn't they go after the GoBots license after they didn't get the Transformers license? But Hasbro bought out both the control and everything.
Hasbro bought GoBots.
Plus, who gives a shit about GoBots?
You shut your poor mouth.
It was the Coke to Transformers Pepsi.
So
reverse.
GoBots was a fucking awesome property, and I will not have you besmirching the respect they deserve in this podcast. As a series, that show had an excellent mythology, and it really built on itself and was a cool show. It was Hanna-Barbera. So
my first transforming vehicle was actually a GoBot, because my dad was a semi-truck driver, and I think part of it was price, but Optimus Prime was a stub nose semi-truck.
Mm-hmm.
Stax, which is an evil robot from GoBots,
not only an evil robot from GoBots, but he was part of the Combiner Force, wasn't he?
I think so.
He was like the torso.
But my dad had a long nose semi, so that was like my first one. Just because my first vehicle had to be the semi, it couldn't be a car. So
well, growing up, with a white middle class family myself, it was always I could go to Big Lots and a Transformer was $10 and a GoBot was $2. So what did you think little Derek got?
A GoBot.
I got a lot of GoBots, man.
Somebody brought up the Centurions, so I think we might start seeing a rehash of Centurions.
Those were the guys that were like the 8-inch action figures, and you hooked all the equipment onto them.
Yeah, they had the power suits where all their stuff like attached to them, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I enjoyed that one. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that come.
Do you remember in Humanoids?
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, no shit. Okay, so in Humanoids, it was about these group of military archaeologists. I know it sounds stupid to say it, but there are these giant monsters that lived at the Earth's core, and their job was to go down and deal with these fuckers. Like one looked like Cthulhu, and the other had like a rib cage that opened up, and you would throw people inside of them.
Okay.
And then one was like a magma monster. Fucking Google the Humanoids, dude. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
I just had to Google the Centurions, but okay, yes, I remember this now.
It was sweet. They did like the whole power move, and they went and did a whole thing, and then all their suits got sent down to them. And then...
Do you follow Toy Galaxy on YouTube?
No, I don't.
You need to, because the dude does a fantastic job on going over like these old shows, and he does like a 15 to 20 minute recap on what they were and their origins and inevitably what happened to them.
Okay.
You may enjoy that, but he recently did a Centurions one. I know he's done in Humanoids. He did a multi-part on Transformers and G.I. Joe and Robotech.
Well, they have some pretty good stuff on Netflix for those ones. It was like the
toys that made us.
Yeah.
I fucking love that show. Okay, well, Josh, we tried to say Tabletop Simulator a few times, so we're gonna force the issue now. Game recaps. Roach. Don's been putting this off because he doesn't want to talk about our last game of Bolt Action.
Didn't end well.
Well, let's dial back Tabletop Simulator a bit. As a group, we started playing with Tabletop. Well, I say we as in the collective group. I didn't get into Tabletop Simulator until recently. Josh, I think you were the first one to really do anything with it, and that was back when we were still doing beta work for Fleet, wasn't it?
Yeah, I made the Fleet module to do the Battle for Earth testing and stuff. And then did the drop zone and got it like 85% of the way there and didn't touch it anymore after that because other priorities took place. But yeah, so I made a couple modules for that. And it's Tabletop Simulator is a great way to spend time with your friends who you can't go play with right now. If there's a game that you play, chances are there's a module out there that you can download and play. There's some great Bolt Action. The Drop Fleet one, it still works. It's only missing monitors and the resistance faction out of it, but it's easy enough that you can proxy fleet models in there. Yeah, it's keeping gaming communities viable right now.
Yeah. And it's crazy that there's some paid DLC you can get for it that are licensed full versions of games, but like there's an Axis and Allies workshop kit out there, and it's amazing. Got all the units in there. It's got all the rules in it. I mean, it looks like a full version of Axis and Allies with all of its broken A rules and everything. But yeah, we've been using it for bolt action recently. I released. I put together my German and American army builders and threw those back up on the workshop. There wasn't really any original work there other than joining the minis to their bases. But then I designed a couple of tables, and I put all the tools that I scavenged for that out. And that stuff's gotten some downloads. The bolt action community's really been taken to it. I think I've gotten, 2 games in a few, Don, and 1 game in a few, Josh?
Didn't we do 2 games?
Well, so Don, you and I played a game one night, and Patrick was on for about 5 minutes before his kids blew up his computer, and Josh hung out for a while, and we just played 500 points to see how we used it to play bolt action.
Yeah, Josh and I did a little bit of a trial run, and then you and I played, and then you and Josh played, and then you and I played again.
So Josh and I, we didn't finish, but Josh was going to thump my ass thoroughly in the game that we played.
That was no contest.
It was not. I think you came in there with 12 or 13 order dice?
Yeah.
And I had 8. And I mean, he just pinned the shit out of it. Like I had a veteran squad at SS, and he just pinned the shit out of it. And his artillery observer just like denied the entire center of the board to me, and it was a mess. But I learned a lot from that game because I applied those lessons to the list I took against Don, and I did pretty much the same thing to him that you did to me.
Yeah, there's the more games I've played of bolt action, the more I'm liking how it plays. So I'm pretty happy with how initially, like these guys would know, but anybody who's just getting into bolt action, I thought taking multiple scoring unit or multiple small units was like the best thing to do, just so you could pile up more order dice and stuff. But after game plays, seems, at least the way that we're playing, larger squad better on the table.
There's a happy middle ground there. It's finding the survivable squad on top of getting yourself as many order dice activations as you can. Because not having the order dice is a pain in the ass.
Right. Yeah.
But that game we played, I mean, we had 3 objectives across the board, and my SS hung out until like the next to last turn. They were pinned into inactivity and down and incapable of doing much of anything.
You actually pinned a squad off the table on my end during our game.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I had learned from Josh. I came back to that. I came back and rebuilt that list, and it came out at 12 order dice, and I brought an 88, and it's toe. And then I had 6 squads of infantry that were 7 or 8 regular dudes, but every squad had an LMG with it. And then my command squad, a mortar, and I actually brought an MMG team that ended up in a building like turn 1 and just stayed there. And it was just suppressing fire on one of the objective areas. But Don's 2 tanks rolled right at my 88. And Don, I think if anything lost you the game, it was taking both of those Shermans after my 88. If you would have rolled one of those Shermans down the other side of the table, completely different game, I think.
I thought a 2-on-1 would have cleaned up your 88 pretty quickly.
Yeah, but you forgot how you roll dice.
They just, unfortunately, for as many shots as they took on it, it still didn't kill the thing.
The flip side of that too is I shot both of your tanks with that fucking 88, and I hit it. I hit them each at least once, and I immobilized your one, but I couldn't kill it. And then your other one, I Panzerfaust like 3 times, and it wouldn't die.
Yeah, it didn't die, but you pinned it enough that I lost a couple turns with it.
Yeah.
So, it was. I was trying to take advantage of the terrain. So here's the one problem I have with Tabletop Simulator, and it's not really a problem. It's just it's an adjustment you have to get used to. It's 3D. It's a 3D environment, and you still have to pay attention to where you are and your cover and stuff like that.
Right.
And I had parked that thing from my point of view in a good spot, but then turning around and looking at it from Derek's side of the board, no, it was out in the end. So you really got to give it like just like you would in real life, where you go to your opponent's side of the table and get down to eye level, and you got to do that.
Yeah, there's a lovely screenshot from my 88's perspective of. Nope, I can see the whole side of that Sherman.
So, yeah, what seemed like a good cover from those hedgerows turned out to not be. If I had known that, I probably wouldn't have put the tank all the way up there. But anyway, I would say it's definitely a great effect. As we've said many times within each other anyways, this isn't like going to be a accurate to the T tournament setup kind of a thing. This is just for fun to play with your friends, because measuring is a little, you got a little bit of drifty tape going, because it's hard to point exactly at the front of something to the end of something else.
Well, that's why we got to switch over to Vassal.
Vassal's installed on the machine recording this podcast, actually. I loaded that up and I'm like, no, I can't play this.
The War Machine players are going crazy with it. Like there's
there's no 3D environment for War Machine.
Right, yeah. So there's 20 War Machine games going on right now. While we're recording this that I can see.
How many Drop Zone games?
I don't know that there's a module for Drop Zone.
Not in Vassal, no.
Drop Fleet would work.
So, we're definitely loving TTS. Give it a shot.
The guys,
tons of community-made stuff. So, I mean, other than the initial purchase of Tabletop Simulator, which is what's it now, Josh? Like $10?
Yeah, I think it's on sale right now.
Yeah, it retails at $20. If you get it on sale, you can get it for like $10.
Yeah, so I mean, I would definitely scoop that up, and then it's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get that, maybe like about 4 games in using the system, it comes pretty naturally. Yeah. So, and I would say it's only slightly less fun than actually playing, and that has more to do with being with the people that you're playing with, which is sort of like why we all play tabletop games over, more video game side of things.
Right.
The voice chat options right now we're doing. You can either set up a Discord for all your gamer friends and just do a voice chat party there, or you can do Messenger, or even as we've been using Hangouts as well, which is what we're using for our recording here.
I mean, if you're playing Tabletop Simulator through Steam, you could technically use the Steam group voice chat as well.
Although we could not figure out for the life of us how to invite people into an already existing chat. It just wasn't working.
Yeah, it's a little different. Like you can do, I think you can only talk to like your friends or the people in the actual game.
Gordo, it's time to get a sweet ass Ventrilo server set up again.
Right.
Just set up a Discord, invite your friends, because now you can stream right from Discord, so other people can just watch like the games.
And that helps too, because otherwise you have to invite people into the game on Tabletop Simulator.
Well, yeah. I mean, unless you want, Ventrilo is good for when you want like any 20 random people can just join it and hop on and hop off. But why wouldn't you just do Google Hangouts or something the like, or Discord?
I was just being facetious and referencing our old WoW days.
Right.
So, but yeah, definitely get those. Get playing some games with your friends in this time of woe.
Well, Don, when do we get to play games with each other again? Origins is now pushed back.
Well,
that brings us to events, actually.
Yeah. First off, obviously, Adepticon was canceled. I think we haven't recorded since that realization.
No, we were going to do one right after it, but we didn't.
Yeah, so Adepticon got the shit can. Yeah, like Josh was just saying. Origins announced, it was today, didn't they? You posted that in the chat, didn't you, Josh?
Yeah, today.
Back to October 7th through the 11th, I want to say.
Yep. And that's sort of wishful thinking. That way we'll see. Because even as things start to open up, we're kind of getting a hit with a double-edged sword on that end, because not only were we going to be seeing a late summer opening up of things again, but we also don't know how much of that is even going to open up, because they might initially, I mean, how many months is it going to be, things under 100 people can open up, major festival. We're not going to jump right into major festivals and 20 to 80,000 people conventions, stuff like that overnight.
I don't know if you guys read the post that Origins put out. They're apparently going to do an online virtual convention center and game thing and seminars and all that stuff during Origins' regular time. Did you see that?
Here's my thought on that. they never work. Like there was a whole Adepticant kind of virtual thing and stuff like that. And yeah, you might get a few hundred people interacting or whatever, but it's not the same. Like I won't even bother with those things because it just doesn't interest me. Like you're talking about a social aspect of why people do these things cut right out of it.
Right.
Well, maybe we can get Dave Lewis and Chris and all them to load up some Drop Fleet Tabletop Simulator and get some demos in with people during the event.
We'll see. So to go back to Origins, though, the other thing I was saying is that you're now cutting into the early part of cold and flu season, part 2.
Con crud.
So now we're going back into what could be a second wave coronavirus situation.
Well,
I mean,
Origins has been averaging 20,000 plus attendees the last several years.
Yeah. So while wishful thinking, and certainly, I mean, I'm not complaining about moving from middle of June to early October timeframe because I hate summer.
Hey,
I'm just saying
well, I was going to say, if we still have that private room, we could, check everybody's temperatures, and we could have that small room where we know we're all safe.
Is local cantina patio going to be accessible to us in mid-October?
Oh, it better be. I mean, early October, we're still talking like 6-degree days.
Oh yeah, we'll still be wearing shorts.
Definitely gotta hit the cantina if that happens. And then even to a bigger extent, like Gen Con right now, the majority of gamers' eyes are on Gen Con and whether or not that's even going to take place.
Right.
And it's certainly a day-by-day thing for them, and we'll see what happens. And I actually need to return a phone call from the Gen Con people and see what, if anything, what sort of plan B stuff they might have, if they'll even tell me anything like that.
It's a small miracle that Origins would be able to reschedule itself into October like it did. I can't imagine something the scope and size of Gen Con being able to reschedule.
That would have to be a cancel, because when would they even reschedule to?
November.
Right. So, I mean, at that point, you're starting to cut into, like,
Gen Con can't go to November.
No, it was a joke, Jordan.
So that won't happen. That'll have to be a cancel for the year. At this point, I mean, what are you going to do? It's a loss of life versus a loss of nominal value. I mean, how do you? I know there are people out there certainly putting prices on people's heads in this sort of situation, but I would like to think that our industry cares more about the quality.
Unless some, like, do we know that the vaccine's going to happen?
No, it's not happening.
So if it doesn't,
they're saying 12 to 18 months on a wishful thinking.
I mean, is this going to end up being like a chicken pox scenario for the world, where like there isn't really a good vaccine? You just get it as a kid because it's the safest time to get it.
Well, the issue will come. Here's the things that will happen with this that I see. Either because of the outpour and the outreach of this situation and the people that are dealing with it, we can either get to a vaccine resolution much sooner than we have in the past with certain things that have been kind of fly by night, or we'll get to the point where the ability to handle people's medical conditions will be so much better that the affected people from it, what do I think it up here? The death ratio, it will just be considerably less than what it is right now. Because
we learn enough about the treatment of it that we can lower the survivability.
Right, and then it won't be as big of a deal.
Increase the survivability. We want to increase the survivability.
Lowering non-beneficial.
Lowering the survivability is giving non the dice.
Right.
So that's the two things that I see, and that I think that we are going to see both of those happen in a much more rapid fashion than we have in other things that have happened, because the experts are saying this isn't going away. Mm-hmm. It's going to become a regular thing.
So everybody go get Tabletop Simulator,
right.
Find games that interest you, get your thermal thermometer so that you can invite a friend over and scan them at the door, but don't go to the game stores, unless you're picking up paint.
But do support your local game stores in any way you can.
That's right.
Yeah, if they're doing curbside pickup, or even the place that I get my paints from here in the state, they do deliveries, so I can just do an online order and support them in that way.
My local is, but I mean, I only go in there for foam and basing material.
It's interesting the way that these sort of curbside pickups things are happening now. It's like hostage situations where you've paid them, and then you kind of open your car and they throw the item in. And
I think this is going to be something hard on the local game stores, because really, for anybody who's really dealt with game stores in the past, they make their rent off of the
butts
Magic
and seats for sure, yeah.
So this is going to be hardest hit on them. So if you can get your paints and stuff from your local game stores, if they are doing whatever small little activities. Yeah,
we're actually getting into an interesting situation here where now Amazon, because of the amount of people ordering from them, isn't really that much faster or cheaper than going to your local stores at the moment. So
it's because you don't have a Prime account, you cheap bastard.
No, I mean just because of how much they're doing.
They wanted to charge me $20 for some contrast paint, and that's the paint that Don swears by.
No, dude, that's regular retail price. GW.
Right.
Can't give away my profile.
Wait, GW didn't do a cease and desist to Amazon because they're selling their product online?
It was probably Amazon fulfilling somebody else selling their product.
Yeah. Plus, GW can't mess with Amazon. I mean, that's a big fish that they can't even deal with. So, but yeah, I wanted to kind of add into what Josh was saying about buy local. Now, there really is no excuse not to support local at the moment.
So, you guys want to get together this weekend and play something?
I will see you on the computer, Joe.
Parties of 10 or less? Or is it funerals of 10 or less, parties of 2 or less?
Oh, I don't know. Depends on your state. If you're in the South, it's all systems go still, I think.
That's the plain states, too.
So we take the dog out. We try to take the dog out for a walk at least once or twice a day. And it's crazy. Like Upper has a large number of parks. They're packed. And I mean, they're packed with these clusters of people going places and doing things. And it's like, motherfucker, why?
For something to do.
I understand for something to do, but like you've got these people, these groups of people gathering up, and it's like get away from each other and get away from me.
I will say, at least where I'm at, we've gone to the parks and out on walks and stuff, and everybody seems to be really respecting the 6, if not more, feet.
Construction job sites, they're not.
Well,
goddamn idiots. I mean,
there are certainly certain situations. Like there was somebody doing some major plumbing work at a house on my block today, and there was obviously like 4 people not 6 feet away from each other because they're in holes 6 feet deep or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, there's things you can't help. There's things that are happening that can't help.
Right. But if you're at a dog park, you shouldn't be hanging out with people.
There's also precautions to be taken. I mean, so like, I was talking about the BioLife thing earlier, and they changed up their whole procedure. As soon as you walk in the door, they take your temperature. And if you're running, a mild fever, you're out the door. Like they don't want to deal with you.
And it just prolongs everything that we're trying to do right now.
Flatten the curve
and all that kind of stuff. But even on top of that, it's it's a very selfish attitude to have right now. Even if you are a conspiracy theorist, it doesn't take any effort on your part to abide by current social distancing rules and shit like that. And if you're a person that doesn't want your government taking your rights away, do things that are being asked of you so that they don't become forced on you.
How do we get preachy about viral protections here at the end of this podcast?
Well, this is the episode 4. To do it. So.
We're recording. It's just Jordan talking about 3D printing and viruses.
But yeah, just do what the health experts are expecting of you, and then you can move on with your life eventually. So it's.
Don't you push your liberal agenda on me.
How dare I want to not kill old people by coughing on them?
Those old people want to die to save the economy.
Jeez.
That says when I hear that, I'd be out of a job.
I think it was Glenn Beck that said that. He's like, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm like, motherfucker, you're podcasting from home. What risk are you taking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the people with the biggest bark are never the first ones in line to do whatever they're preaching. So you just got to kind of take all that with a grain of salt and just be like, listen, dumbass. But I mean, here you go. You're in a situation where finally your stupidity will in fact potentially kill you. I mean, yeah, it might affect other people and kill other people too, but at the very least, when people are doing ridiculous things during these times, there is, a threat to them within the situation as well. So it's because, I mean, how many times you just see stupid people doing stuff and you're like, nothing will ever happen to them.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern with the whole coronavirus thing is that my health and safety is dependent on the common sense and the ability of normal people to follow basic instruction.
But at least you're in a situation where you can stay at home,
right,
and have very minimal contact to that.
So you say all that, but it's not any different than you driving to work before all of this happened on a busy road. Like,
Jordan, I know you've been living in the big city for a while, but there's like 12 cars on the road when I drive to work.
Your life is still in their hands when you're driving beside them.
The difference, though, is that
side of the road. I mean,
Derek was in a situation. Well, anybody driving to work was in a situation where you have to go on that road to get to work. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, with people working from home and things like that, your interaction with the stupidity out there is very, very minimal anymore. And with everybody doing the curbside pickups and stuff like that, like I'm saying, it's almost non-existent if you really want it to be.
So interestingly enough, I saw. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
No, it was going to be a bad joke anyway, so I'll just let it pass.
Well, I saw a statistic today where COVID has exceeded heart disease and cancer as the daily killer of people. So, yay for COVID achieving.
2020 is a wonderful year, is it not?
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's 2020. How did they not see this coming?
Oh.
Ever since 2016, we've been on this like steady downhill progression. It's like, motherfuck. Someone posted the other day, and it's like, so what's your bet for April? Meteor crashes into the planet, aliens invade, robots take over. And I was just like, fuck that. It's going to be a meteor crash lands containing, alien robots that enslave us. It's going to go. This year's not pulling any punches.
It's the Earth, man. Mother Nature is finally pissed. So she encouraged a couple of people to eat a bat in a cave, and now here we are. But anyways, not to end on a depressing note or whatever. But
not to end on a depressing note, but we're all going to die.
It's Covidcon here, so.
Covidcon.
But the good news is, if you're not stupid and you stay away from stupid people, chances of you being in any danger are pretty minimal. So.
Oh man, I thought Don was gonna go into a sales pitch.
For
some reason, I was thinking that you're going to say, well, the good news is, like once TT Combat opens up, we're going to have all sorts of sales and stuff again. Like the Adepticon sale that they had going for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate oversight.
Good stuff.
On that note, though, if you were ever looking to travel anywhere in the world, I mean anywhere, I think travel deals are going to be insane once we were able to get back out into a somewhat public capacity.
Last time I was outside, gas was like $1.35.
I mean, flights are going to be ridiculously cheap. Everything's going to be cheap. Cruises are basically going to have to give rooms away to get anybody on those death boats now.
I've got one scheduled for August. We'll see if I'm allowed to go on it.
Oh my God, don't go on that, John.
I tell you what,
you need to cancel that.
Gas drops another 30 cents. I'm going back to it's going to be like 1998 again. I'm going to go back to smoking and driving a truck.
No, man, we're just going to need to start finding some empty oil drums around here and get our own little surplus going.
I have a shed full of 55-gallon drums full of gas.
Just try to burn down the neighborhood.
When I was like 18, I drove an old 84 Ford F-150 that had two 20-gallon tanks. And like it didn't bat an eye, right? Because I was still living at home and I worked at a Pizza Hut and I was a borderline chain smoker and I drove that fucking thing everywhere, getting like 8 miles to the gallon. I didn't care. It was less than $40 to fill up.
Right. Yeah. I had a 78 Thunderbird that was not exactly good on gas, but you could throw $5 in that thing and get it through the week.
Now my Grand Prix costs $40. Well, not anymore. I stopped and got gas the other day when I was in Findlay and I put like $11 in it. It was like half a tank.
Nice.
I was like, holy shit, this is great.
My dumbass had to buy a diesel. It's not quite as low.
Yeah, the Mini's got a small gas tank, so $20 right now will get me gave me a full tank just about. So even on premium, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is the tank of gas will get you through like a month now because we're not going anywhere. So,
well,
in your face, Volt owners and other electric car owners.
we should probably get together and play some online games sooner than later. Maybe we can get enough people together. We'll do a tabletop simulator tournament.
That could be interesting.
That could be fun.
Be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we do? Well, let's not get into.
Well, you just have someone has to TO it. So what's cool too is everyone's playing on the same table at that point. But you just have, if we have 8 people playing, then you've got 4 separate games going. Then everyone just reports back after the game. This was my score, and someone organizes and tallies everything, and then you just reassign to the next game.
That's true. Because how many voice chats can you have on Discord at a time?
It doesn't matter if Josh you're playing and you and I are playing. We'll have our own chats, and then when it's done, we'll just message each other. Hey, my game's done. Here's my stats.
Well, I mean, if you want to be TO, you should have a voice chat that has everybody. So
they can message the TO to pop in their channel or whatever.
Yeah, or
it's doable. We can flesh it out.
But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of possibility to continue doing some gaming here, and then as we get into the next couple of weeks here, we'll be playing a lot more games. And Derek's put together a couple of nice boards and things like that. And there was the one dude who was expanding on the Zone TDS module. We're creating his own. No, he's creating his own. Did you see that, Josh?
Yes, I said run with it. Take all my assets and go.
So there will be an option for playing Zone and then Fleet, as Josh pointed out.
That dude's just going to grab your assets.
Hey, you know what? If somebody wants to grab my assets,
grab you right by the ass.
I see what you did there.
So, I think we're in a situation where we can, play a few things here and there.
Yeah, I found someone did a Zombicide Black Plague box as well, or simulator as well.
So I think there's actually something official about that.
There's an official Zombicide one that Josh picked up,
Mhm.
but the Black Plague one is a workshop. I don't know if someone built it off of some of the assets from the official one, but
there's a community one for Gloomhaven that's all but sponsored by the creators of the board game.
Oh yeah, do you want to start playing Gloomhaven, Jordan?
I mean, could. Do you have time for that?
I maybe.
I hope I don't fall asleep again.
You fell asleep trying to play Gloomhaven once?
Yeah, down in Columbus or at Origins last year.
Well, how many drinks did you have in you?
Not as many as he has now.
Jordan, do they have the multiplayer version of the actual video game version of Gloomhaven going yet?
No, they don't, and that disappointed me.
Okay, because I thought that was like a January release.
Yeah.
I mean, the game itself is out, but it's like still alpha.
Right. That's I knew it was out way back in October. I think it was, but January was supposed to be the rest of it was supposed to be available.
I mean, I got it for the price point, and I got it to check how the engines work. But since there's nothing legacy about it, it's essentially a engine simulation of very generic scenarios. It doesn't hold any interest to me.
Okay.
You're too cool for it.
One last thing to add to TTS real quick before we sign off here. We've been talking about it a lot, and I just wanted to make sure people understand that there are no rules or anything like that for the game included in these modules.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Just a virtual play surface for you.
Well,
it simulates your table surface that you would be playing on.
Yes, yeah, it is. Just imagine that there's a blank table in front of you, and you or whoever created the module is putting all the terrain pieces there. It doesn't really think for you.
Right, there's no rules for you to look up or anything like that. You gotta know all that stuff.
No, actually, a lot of the new things have rules like the Zombicide has the rule book there, or Oak and Iron from Firelock. That they just put the entire PDF right there on the table.
If you have a PDF, you could import it as a custom PDF, and it'll create basically a tablet version of it for you to use. So use Drop Zone for an example. You've got the free PDF rule set. You could import that PDF directly into Tabletop Simulator and then have that on the table.
Yep. Well, okay. Well, then forget what I said.
Because that's what I do. I think when we played, I had done that with my list. My bolt action list was on the table because I just imported it directly in, so I could reference it.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, I'll have to show you how to do that again.
Okay. I had Easy Army open in the background, just flip back and forth.
Yeah, that saves you quite a bit of headache because you can just hit the Alt key and look right at the sheet. It's like, oh, okay, well, there's my stuff.
All right, well, thanks for letting me know.
I told you, but
you did not. You did not tell me that.
First off, my army was on the table in front of you. It's not like I was like, oh, how can I hide this shit just to freak Don out? I had to alt tab to get to the book though because I forgot my paper book. But maybe I'll see if I can import my my PDF in and have it as an asset in my box. Because I have my token box I bring with me.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we could probably wrap it up since we
rambled for 2.5 hours now.
Yeah.
The podcast is only at an hour and 40 minutes. But I mean, I can probably cut it down to 40 minutes if I get rid of the 3D printer stuff.
Oh, geez, come on, man. People will enjoy that.
Well, I'm kind of amazed we made it this far with no Tiger King references.
I mean, I know you guys are all into Tiger King, but I am very much in the Patrick vein of that. I've watched 2 episodes of it, and I'm like, I don't fucking need this guy in my life.
I haven't even started.
Nobody does. That's the point.
I remember Joe Exotic from Last Week Tonight, and I was just like, why the fuck's this guy got a Netflix series?
As I pointed out to people that haven't seen it, I said, if you're on the fence about watching it, wait until something's going on in your life, especially since we're all quarantined with our families and stuff like that. Wait until it just feels like I can't handle this anymore, and then you watch that show, and then you realize, man, my life is amazing.
All right, so anybody got some final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to buy a tagger with my my Trump check. I saw a great post. If capitalism's so great, why does socialism have to keep bailing it out every decade or so? I'm sorry, I didn't even kill the cat with you.
No, that was just the death of capitalism there.
Right. Now Don said, Don, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Stay home. Stay your ass.
That was poignant. Josh,
use your quarantine wisely. Paint them minis.
Oh, Jordan had a final thought.
Right.
This is your fucking episode, dude. All we need is a pandemic for you to come out of your shell.
I'll just throw in, get Tabletop Simulator, keep your community active, and go check out the Oak and Iron module that they've released from Firelock on it, and it's a lot of fun.
I don't think I have any final thoughts. This episode has drained me, mind and soul. I'm just looking at us creeping up on an hour and 45 minutes thinking, how long is this going to take in post?
I don't know. It's not my problem.
You're right. I was trying to shut you fuckers up. It wasn't because I didn't care. It's because I was thinking, man, I got to edit this shit. All right. Well, hey, if you are not following the podcast, please follow us. Also, pop over to Facebook and join the Command Value 1 group. And leave us some thoughts, comments, and opinions there. Things that you'd like us to talk about, things that you don't want to ever hear us talk about again. Pictures of your sweet-ass quarantine masks. I don't know. Interest in Tabletop Simulator. Maybe we'll try to put together a Command Value 1 group on Tabletop Simulator and get some games of something in. I don't know. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Fan jokes. Gentlemen, on that note.